We're starting a new series this morning on Matthew 5. If you want to start turning your way there, I just want to take a chance here to say thank you to Pastor Cook, Brad Flurry, and Ryan Rush for just giving me this opportunity to bring the word to you this morning. For most every person, happiness is the main priority of our life. Blaise Pascal said this. He said, "All men seek happiness. This is without exception. Whatever different means they employ, they all tend to this end. The cause of some going to war and of others avoiding it is the same desire in both, attended with different views. The will never takes the least step but to this object. This is the motive of every action of every man." So let's be honest, everything that we do is motivated not by what will make us happy, but by what we believe will make us happy. You notice the difference there? It's not necessarily what is going to bring the happiness, but what we think is going to bring us happiness. But most of the time, happiness doesn't come the way that we think it will. And so there are many different ways that people seek out happiness. And there are a few that I wanted to just bring to your attention. And the first is happiness by acquisition. So many people think that if I could just get that car, if I could buy that house, if I could get this one thing, you fill in the blank for whatever that is for you, that would bring happiness to my heart. The next thing a lot of people try is happiness by enlightenment. If I could just understand this, if I could have knowledge in this field, if my friends saw me as the wisest person, then that would bring happiness. Another way people search for happiness is happiness by acceptance. If I could get that person to love me, that group to accept me, then I could finally be happy. How many of you remember memorizing the declaration, the preamble to the Declaration of Independence when you were in school? Anybody? A few of us. It says this: "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness." Our country was built on the idea that every person has the right to pursue happiness, to find happiness, to have this thing that brings contentment and joy. This morning, we're going to begin the series on the Sermon on the Mount. This is the most famous sermon that Jesus ever gave. It's in Matthew 5. We're going to be spending time this morning in the first 5 verses. But it's in this sermon that Jesus begins with the word blessed. And you probably can quote a lot of the Beatitudes, but they start with blessed. And this simple word carries with it one of the most sought after mindsets in the world. The idea of blessing, the idea of happiness. And Jesus sets out 8 behaviors, 8 attitudes, 8 ways to center your mind on what it means to live the blessed life. If you're in Matthew 5, we're going to read the first 5 verses, and it says this: "When he saw the crowds, he went up on the mountain, and after he sat down, his disciples came to him. Then he began to teach them, saying, 'Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth.'" And verse 6, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." There is some great news for you today. You can, in fact, be happy. You can find happiness. But in this upside down world of the Beatitudes, Jesus helps us understand that it's probably not going to come the way you think. So this morning, I hope that you'll find 2 secrets of happiness. And the first secret is this, is that happiness is a byproduct of surrender. And that just sounds crazy, right? You give up of yourself to have happiness. It's easy to think that the secret would be to work hard at that happiness, to go after it with all you've got. But there's an interesting discovery here. And so jumping into verse 3, Jesus says this, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs." So there are 3 Greek words that are used for this word poor. 2 of them have a very similar meaning, and it carries the idea of a poor person being able to produce a living for themselves. And while it may not be an extravagant living, it is a possible living. They're able to provide enough for their own survival. But the other Greek word that's used for poor is actually the one that's used here. And this word means to be beggarly poor. This person doesn't have the capability to do anything to provide for themselves. They can't earn money, they can't get food, they can't take care of themselves, they are completely destitute. This person is totally dependent upon someone else for what they need. There's a word picture that is associated with this use of poor, and what it means is that this person, this beggar, finds themselves crouching in a corner with their face down to the ground, with not enough pride to even look up to make eye contact with someone, but knowing that in their poor state, they can do nothing but turn away and reach out, palms up, hoping that someone or anyone would come by and give them a piece of bread, to give them a coin, to give them some means to help their situation. That's the word that Jesus uses here in this first attitude that he addresses the crowd. That's us. As we come to Jesus, that is the picture that we should have of our own life. You see, their situation, their poverty, it can only be helped by the work and generosity of someone else. Blessed are the poor in spirit. This isn't talking about the financially poor. This is talking about people who are spiritually bankrupt. So blessed are those who are spiritually bankrupt. So when I go to the well of my heart, what I find is that I am incredibly empty. That I don't have anything within myself to draw on to solve my problems. I find myself reaching out for hope, reaching out for help, because I'm in desperate need of someone else to solve that problem. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. Jesus doesn't just say the poor, he says the poor in spirit. Because there were likely, as he's sitting on this mountain addressing his 12 disciples and a larger crowd that has gathered, there are people from every kind of background. There are probably rich, there are poor, there are healthy, there are sick, there are all types of people here. And Jesus makes sure that he is not just talking to those without the means to take care of themselves, but the poor in spirit. Because he's talking about an attitude. He's talking about how you view your circumstances and your condition. So what's the attitude that he wants to get across here? I can tell you with confidence that it's not an I'm no good, self-deprecating attitude where you look at yourself and you just say, well, I'm just a terrible, awful person. But it is an I'm no good on my own kind of attitude. And we find that we have great hope. Our situation is drastically different when we see ourselves in that light and know that we rely on God. Do you want to be happy this morning? To be the one that Jesus calls blessed? You see, God is calling you to something very counterintuitive. And we're going to see this as we continue to study the Sermon on the Mount, that it's very upside down. But this morning we need to recognize our utter need and dependence on him. Because the world is going to tell each of us that the most important thing that we need to do is believe in ourselves, to push hard, to work hard, to trust the process, to be your best you, to live your best life. But Jesus says just the opposite. Jesus says, get over yourself. And the sooner you do, the sooner you can enjoy the blessed life depending on God. That through the poverty of spirit, you will inherit the kingdom of God. So the next 3 Beatitudes are all completely dependent on our grasp and obedience to this first, poor in spirit. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. These next 3 follow from that. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the humble, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. You see, you have to be a spiritual beggar before you're in a place to mourn over the brokenness in your life. And you have to mourn before you can get to a place of humility. And you have to find yourself humbled before you're willing to hunger and thirst after the things of God, his righteousness, his holiness. And that brings us to secret number 2 for this morning, that happiness is a byproduct of holiness. Pastor Cook shared that our KSM did U-turn this week, or this weekend rather, and their theme was holy. And they talked all weekend about how holiness is living set apart. And so if we look back at verse 6, it says this: blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. And so before we dive into this holiness work, we need to understand that the word blessed in the original Greek is actually talking about the state of the Greek gods. So the Greek gods were considered to be blessed because they were not in the problems. They were not walking the earth with all the troubles that humanity had. They were set apart. That's where this idea of blessed comes from. And while the Greek gods are not the standard for believers today, this view that they were separated brings a lot of clarity to the righteousness that Jesus talks about in this beatitude. You see, because the Old Testament law was built on setting Israel up to be different from the nations that surrounded them. The Levitical Law is all about how they are to live, to act, to interact in their relationships, their dietary laws, so that they would be seen as different. In fact, even in Deuteronomy 14:21, it says this: you shall not eat anything which dies of itself. You may give it to the alien who is in your town, that he may eat it. You may sell it to a foreigner, but you are a holy people to the Lord your God. There were some things that were okay for those who were outside of Israel to do that were not okay for those inside of Israel to do. They were to be holy, righteous. They were to be set apart. Likewise, you and I today, we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be special. The New Testament builds on this Old Testament idea of holiness, but rather applying it through dietary rules and relational restrictions. It comes through a relationship with Jesus. You see, Jesus came to bring hope, help, healing, and holiness. And it's in this holiness, this set apartness, that we actually find our happiness. Lots of people mistakenly think that it's their problems that make them unhappy, that are the barrier between them and happiness. And while I don't wish for problems for myself, or certainly not for any of you, we need to understand that these are not the things that make us unhappy. Because if you look at every station in life, every place you look, you're going to find some people who are happy and some people who are incredibly unhappy. And see, people pursue happiness in all kinds of ways, but also often are counter to how someone else is pursuing happiness. Some people try to find happiness in their marriage. Some people think that they're going to find happiness in divorce. Some people find happiness in diet. Some people find happiness in eating, right, Josh Stewart? Some people find happiness in their work. Some find it in laziness. Some find it in travel. Some find it when they stay home. What's the common denominator here? Everyone is looking for fulfillment. Everyone is looking for that thing that is going to bring about this happiness in their life. But none of those things can bring about happiness. They can't cause happiness. It doesn't come from your situation. You see, because we'll be in a state of happiness. We'll be the fortunate one. We'll be the one who has the favor of God, which is how it was described in the Old Testament, when we're spiritually poor, when we mourn, when we're humble, and when we're hungry for the righteousness of God. Because it takes us to a place where we're set apart. When I was a college pastor several years ago, I used to take groups of students to Southwest China. And we would live there for a month, and we would prepare and prepare and prepare. But the one thing that we went over time and time and time again was to never let any tap water enter your mouth. You couldn't brush your teeth with it. Like when you're showering, you're trying to guard yourself from the impurities that were found in the water. And so the first thing that we would do in getting to our city is go to a local market, buy as much bottled water as we could find, and only drink that, only use that. That water was different. That water had been set apart. That water was holy for our team, because we knew that it was pure. It was radically different than the water that came out of the tap. It's when we find ourselves in this place, this set apart place, this place where we hunger and thirst for righteousness, that we find ourselves able to experience true happiness. So blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Hunger and thirst are real feelings. They have real emotions attached to them. And Jesus uses this illustration very specifically. Think about the last time you were just incredibly thirsty. Some of your mouths are starting to get dry just thinking about that. But when you are incredibly thirsty, there is this pain that happens in your stomach. There's a weakness that runs through your body. Your mouth gets dry. It can even get hard to swallow. And there is nothing that is going to stop you from getting water into your mouth. That's the idea that Jesus is teaching here in verse 6. The blessed person seeks out righteousness, seeks out holiness like a thirsty person seeks out water. They will do anything to get the cooling, life-giving, refreshing water of Jesus to their lips. Charles Spurgeon says this: thirsting after righteousness is throwing your whole nature into the pursuit of the heavenly and the eternal. You know, the Sermon on the Mount, it begins with these Beatitudes. And we're actually going to take time over the next several weeks to dig into these individually. But Jesus, what he's not telling his disciples here is do these things and then you will be happy. What he's saying is to the degree that these things are true of your heart, This will be true of your behavior, and happiness comes in that. Jesus' view of righteousness, of holiness, is vastly different than of the Pharisees, the Sadducees, the scribes, the religious leaders of his day. These people stood and they followed every directive, they followed every law. They were very different than the people around them, but it was a show. It was in their own efforts. There was no humility. And just a few verses down from where we are today, Jesus says this in Matthew 5:20, "For I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven." You see, Jesus is much more concerned about your attitude, your state of mind, what you are, than what you do. Or as we might say where I'm from in Arkansas, what you be. If you are these things, happiness will come. Blessed is the fill in the blank. Not blessed is the person who strives and strives and strives and tries as hard as they can. A person's actions are truly changed when a person's heart is truly changed. And that's all wrapped up in how important we see Jesus and where we see our place to fall underneath that. Because a changed heart happens when we realize that we are that beggar, that we are hopeless and helpless without the grace, love, and forgiveness of God. So let's get practical for just a minute here. If you think about it, the 4 habits that we have here at Kingsland for true fulfillment all involve humility. So if you want to rest in God, that means you have to sacrifice something: sleep, work, time, etc. To bless someone else, you have to be willing to listen to them, to know where they're going, and to speak truth into their lives. When you gather, you're saying that other believers matter to you, that you still have things to learn, that you want to be part of something that's bigger than yourself. And to go means that you see the lost and fallen world around you, and you're willing to sacrifice yourself, your resources, to go and make an impact for the gospel. If you say you want to be happy, but then say, God, I'm not going to surrender here, or God, I'm not going to surrender there, you shouldn't be surprised when you miss the joy of the blessed life. There's a great example in Luke 18, verses 9 through 13 that we're going to look at as we close this morning. And he also told this parable to some people who trusted in themselves that they were righteous. They viewed others with contempt. 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee, the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and was praying to himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other people, swindlers, unjust, adulterers, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I pay tithes of all I get. But the tax collector, standing some distance away, was even unwilling to lift up his eyes to heaven, just beating his chest, saying, God, be merciful to me, the sinner. I tell you, this man went to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but he who humbles himself will be exalted. Remember the first attitude that we looked at just a couple moments ago. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for the kingdom of heaven is theirs. This is more than just the start of some clever sayings of Jesus. This right here is the thesis statement for the greatest sermon that was ever preached by the greatest person that has ever lived. From the very beginning of this powerful message, Jesus makes sure that everyone who can hear the sound of his voice understands it's not about you. It's not about your effort. It's not about what you bring to the table. It's not about who you know. It's not about how you handle situations or how much money you make or how happy you think you are. Because what Jesus wants us to understand is there is nothing good within you that can help your situation. That we are in desperate need to have our face down, to reach up and say, Jesus, it is only you, by your grace, by your love, by the hope that is found in you, that we can have happiness, fulfillment, and hope. So I don't know where you're at this morning. Maybe you're in a spot where you've walked with Jesus for some time now, but you've been holding on to some secret sin where you say, God, I know that you're working over here and all this is happening really good, but I got this. I can take care of this. Would you lay that down to him this morning? We're going to have some prayer team members around the back of the room. I'm going to be standing over here in just a few minutes, but if there is something that is between your relationship and God, where you have your own pride, where you are relying on yourself, would you take this chance this morning to say, God, I need you. I want you to fix this. I want you to be in this, and I cannot do this on my own. But there might be another group of people here this morning. Maybe this morning you're saying, I've been trying to do this all on my own. I've been trying to clean myself up, to get good enough for God, to make myself pretty and shiny on the outside so that God would love me or want me. Can I just plead with you for a minute this morning that is not how you get to God. That is not how a relationship with him works. Because God is looking at you. He's looking at the darkness of your heart, and he's saying, I want you just like that. Would you come to me? Would you let me speak into your life? Would you let me love you where you are? If that's you this morning, there is hope in this place, and it is not found in any of these people that are here. It is found in Jesus Christ, who came to this earth, lived the perfect, righteous, holy life, and he stepped into our sin and was put to death on a cross. He stood in our place and took the wrath of God. But the story didn't end there, because 3 days later, he rose from the grave, proving that he has the power over sin and over death. That's the God that loves you where you're at. That's the God who wants to walk with you every day. That's the God who wants to speak hope and truth into you this morning. So if that's you, here in just a moment, we're going to sing a song. And again, I'll be standing down here. We're going to have people all around the back of the room. If you want more information, if you have questions, if you just want somebody to pray with you, don't let this moment pass you by if the Holy Spirit is doing something in your heart. Would you pray with me? Father God, you are so good. You are holy. You are righteous. And Lord, you are all we need. There is no one like you. And God, while we know that there is nothing that we could do to deserve a relationship with you, God, you desire a relationship with us. And so, Lord, I just fall at your feet in worship of you for that love and hope that you have given. God, I pray that this morning, not a person would leave this place without understanding and feeling the hope that you extend to them today. God, may we be people who are passionate about you, whose attitudes, whose actions, whose lives and hearts are forever changed by the glorious gospel of Jesus Christ. Will you take all the honor and glory and praise in this time? It's in Jesus' precious name I pray.